wondering if you could talk about the initial comments that he makes is that this is a different kind of praying. I'm wondering if you see your own works as somehow continuing to work out some of your more metaphysical leanings from youth, even in your present-day projects.
The obvious answer is inevitably, of course. Once you are raised in the bosom of the church and the Christian school system, Westside Christian, Grand Rapids Christian High, Calvin College, that implanting never leaves you. And no matter how far you think you've run from it, you look over your shoulder and you find out you're coming back again. And so this film was sort of full circle because it's 50 years now since I left Calvin and went to UCLA Film School. And this was a film that I swore I would never make. I had written a book about spiritual style and cinema, which is being reissued this month by UCal Press in a new edition, updated edition. But whenever anyone suggested that perhaps my films were related to that book, I would say, no. That's not me. I'm not that guy. I'm not interested in making that film. I'm not going to go skating on that Braconian ice. I'm too interested in, intoxicated with action and empathy and sex and melodrama, and I'm not going to go there. And then about 3 years ago, I was giving Paweł Pawlowski an award at the New York Society of Film Critics, and he had done this film, Ida, Polish film about a nun. And we got to talking about spiritual films, spiritual style, and the new economics of filmmaking that allow these kinds of films to be financially feasible in a way that they weren't 10 or 20 years ago. And I walked back uptown, and I said, okay, it's time. It's time to write that movie you swore you would never write. And that's how it started. Taxi Driver is a story of someone obsessed with suicidal glory, as was Mishima. Same story, different culture. Blood is in the DNA of Christianity. It was built in by the Jews with their endless sacrifices. It was transformed by Jesus with a symbolic sacrifice, but it keeps coming back, in the blood, washed in the blood. There's a fountain filled with blood, dipped in the hands of blood. And when Christian kids start to go crazy, it's not at all unusual that they go this way. They go into this notion that God demands my sacrifice, that if I am washed in my own blood, Jesus will accept me as one of his own, and I will be transfigured. Now, this is obviously an insidious fantasy, and it's also a jihadist fantasy. It's not much different than the Muslim kid feels, who has that same fantasy. And so you can't really say it's an improper fantasy for Christians, because Christians have been having it for thousands of years, and the scourging, the whippings, and the self-degradation that Christians do out of the notion that this will make them look better in God's eyes. And Jesus doesn't say that. That's an aberrational pathology, but it is built into the DNA of Christianity. And so, Christianity can be jihadistic just as easy as Islam. When I decided to write a film of this type, I just looked over and I said, okay, what are the films of this type that you like most? And then you have the main character from Country Priest, and you have the setting from Winterlight, Bergman. The ending comes from Ordette. And there's a little bit of Silent Light in there, and there's a little bit of Ida in there. And then it's all And of course, there's the Tarkovsky scene, the levitation scene, which was Tarkovsky's kind of go-to position on whenever you get two people horizontally. And then, but it's all tied together or glued together with Taxi Driver. And I was in the editing room, and the editor said to me, you know, there's a lot of Taxi Driver in this film. I said, yeah, I know there was some. But now watching it as we're editing it, there's much more than I thought there was. I mean, there were a few obvious little references, little tips of the hat to Marty had that shot that he stole from Godard, 2 or 3 things about her where he went up and into a bottle of a glass of Alka-Seltzer. So I did an homage where I went up and into the Pepto-Bismol in the bourbon. But one of the reasons the film feels so fruitful to me, because it does combine that first book I wrote about spirituality and cinema, which is how I got into cinema, and that first film I wrote, which was about the psychopathology of suicidal glory, and kind of combine them together.
Is this the closest film you believe to your own ethos?
Well, let's put it this way. I hope this is not my last film, but if it is, it's a very good last film.
Paul Schrader.